Water is the magic liquid that is quite literally the source of all living things on Earth. Yes, all things, not just humans. Even the ones you really don't want to think about, like the creepy, crawly microbes infesting your face. Forget about flavor, minerals, and ions for a bit. Most bodies of water contain just about all sorts of delightful pathogens. Sweaty mammals like horses, cows, and us humans require an ungodly amount of water to make up for the liquids we ooze out of our bodies, leaving us concerningly vulnerable to water-related diseases. In fact, dying from accidentally drinking bad water was surprisingly common for us humans until very recently. If you had digestive issues a few centuries ago, specifically diarrhea, you might as well try to beat some manners into your kid one last time, because you were pretty much marked for death. Let's set sail for cholera! The disease that will quite literally make you shit yourself to death. This is the Ganges River in India. Yikes, even Moana wouldn't want to go for a swim here. Cholera was originally localized to only this particularly filthy body of water. Don't you miss the good old days when people would get sick and just die alone in a ditch instead of being able to board a goddamn plane? Britain became a world superpower by spawning colonies all over the world like rabbits. While a connected world definitely brought home some cute souvenirs like tea and tandoori chicken, naturally contained diseases like cholera suddenly was able to spread like, well, you know, the thing that made people riot over fucking toilet paper. In 1817, a massive outbreak of cholera was the beginning of the end. With a path to the world wide open, cholera morphed from a localized endemic to an actual pandemic by freight hopping to Britain. As far as cholera was concerned, the British Thames was just as fertile of a spawning pool as the Indian Ganges was back then. Britain's already shitty water quality was tipped over the edge and tumbled into ungodly levels of pollution due to the Industrial Revolution and the explosive growth in city population. You couldn't make a more welcoming environment for cholera if you tried. Cholera hijacked British ships and merrily spread to Europe, Asia, the Americas, and even Africa. If there were water and people, cholera would delightfully crash the party. My dear viewer, you already know from experience how this story goes. This very rapidly became a global problem. In 1846, the third wave of cholera hit the world like a relentless, savage tsunami. Britain was, of course, swept away along with everyone else. Soho, London was, and still is, a vibrant, energetic district. It experienced an explosive growth in population from the Industrial Revolution from the 19th century or the Victorian era. It became this crowded hub with grimy laborers penned up like chickens. Cholera was, of course, thriving in Soho in 1854. Why don't we tag along royal physician Jon Snow as he tries to figure out this maddening mystery of what's causing people to drop dead like flies. Snow first maps out the houses of all the known cholera patients and casualties, trying to find a clue, any clue. Hold on, this is a rather interesting pattern. It seems like a significant chunk of the victims are located near the pump on Broad Street. Seems promising. Maybe we can cautiously etch out a hypothesis that it's something to do with the water. Well, not quite. There are two exceptions that throw a wrench in this theory. You see, there is a victim living in Hampstead, which is an hour away from this particular pump. Conversely, there are two places right next to the pump that seems to be a blessed sanctuary while everyone else is literally shitting themselves to death. We have to figure out what's going on here in order to make our theory any more plausible than God is angry at you sinners. The patient in Hampstead turned out to be this frail old lady. She thought that the water from this pump on Broad Street was addictingly delicious for some inexplicable reason and went way out of her way to drink from that pump. Hey, some people just like the taste of death. Alright, whatever. What about those two sanctuaries? It turned out that this factory had its own private, uncontaminated pump, so that makes sense. As for this brewery over here, well, they just drank alcohol instead of water, and this saved their lives. Bet they didn't teach you that in your alcoholism awareness seminar. Jon Snow vandalized the evil pump into retirement with righteous glory and subdued the cholera wave before it got out of control. This clang significantly contributed to the radical concept we now know as public health. It also finally motivated the British government to bite the bullet and finally get its notoriously horrendous sewer infrastructure in order. You know what? I'm gonna say something controversial. Yeah, the pump killed a lot of people, but it really wasn't the pump's fault. The pump was just following orders. Wow, David, way to get canceled. Alright, hear me out. The pump and the water reservoir functioned just fine. Patient Zero just happened to live nearby, and his septic tank just happened to be near the pump. It's now widely accepted that his cholera-infested shit seeped through the soil and contaminated the pump's reservoir. We were all recently forced to learn what contact tracing means, collecting lots of data, analyzing it through various means, and attempting to find the source of the disease. This whole process started with Jon Snow vandalizing the pump. You get thirsty if you sweat too much, but then again, you gotta take a leak if you drink too much to overcompensate. Maintaining a consistent level of hydration and electrolytes is an essential background process of the human body. Unfortunately, the human body isn't very good at performing such an important task. You know how when something upsets your stomach for whatever reason, you just shit liquid and vomit until there's nothing left? This sudden disruption in electrolyte balance is actually really dangerous and might kill you. Despite this risk, the human body says, fuck it, and presses the big red button anyway. This is because physically flushing out all those pesky parasites is easier than trying to actually deal with the complicated problem. Okay, I'm starting to see why God just flooded the earth and killed everyone to start anew instead of trying to find a less drastic solution. The human body ignores the horrified shrieks of your kidneys, yeets a hand grenade at the delicate electrolyte balance, and lazily purges the contents of your intestines. After all, it could just procrastinate and add water back later. I'll do it later. Famous last words. Well, what if you don't? That's it! Game over. You're dead. You can start to see why cholera is such a terrifying disease. Sure, flood your body and purge all the contaminants. Cholera would actually prefer it if you kept doing that, so this devastating infinite loop just gets worse with each iteration. Most of the water we drink is absorbed by our guts by something called osmotic pressure. In a nutshell, it's how tree roots absorb nutrition from soil. Alright, let's say that a cell and water got too close and didn't leave room for Jesus. If the mineral density in the cell is higher than water, moisture actually seeps through the cell wall to maintain equilibrium. When cholera infects your guts, it flings around poison that disables this function. You're physically unable to absorb sodium while you keep leaking chlorine. This decreases the inner cell electrolyte density while increasing the external electrolyte density. Oh man, you're in real trouble now. Osmotic pressure is completely reversed, and all the moisture in your cells get flushed away through your guts. You can lose up to 20 liters or 5.2 gallons of water a day like this. Just keep hemorrhaging water like crazy while physically unable to absorb any. Keep vomiting and shitting yourself until you die. What a way to go, huh? See, this was back when your average European thought that it was bad air quality that killed people. After Jon Snow got rid of the pump on Broad Street, German biologist Robert Koch went to India himself in 1883 to find the OG cholera bacteria. Despite the fact that he proved beyond a reasonable doubt that it was this bacteria that was causing cholera, it was difficult to convince people that germs existed. Hell, there was even this one scientist that literally drank cholera liquid as a protest against germs. Well, the medical community eventually grudgingly accepted that germs could cause diseases, and governments around the world started to realize how stuff like public health and a proper sewer system were somewhat important. Cholera, it seemed, was starting to go away for good. Well, for the first world anyway. In developing countries where access to clean water and sewer infrastructure is impossible, it was actually really difficult to prevent another outbreak. After all, if people have to literally walk hours to get some drinking water, they're not going to be particularly picky. Have you ever wondered what those dreaded IVs actually do? They directly pump water and electrolytes into your bloodstream without having to go through your intestines. So, cholera essentially became a needle stab away from being irrelevant. Sure, the moisture and electrolytes might backflow from your intestines, but you can just casually shit it all out while the IV keeps you stocked. That's convenient and all for modernized countries, but the developing countries that are actually having to deal with cholera don't have access to water, let alone a fully stocked sanitary hospital with IVs. Up until the 1960s, cholera still terrified the world except for a few particularly sophisticated nations. That is, until the miraculous invention of ORT, or oral rehydration therapy. As the name suggests, oral rehydration therapy can be simply done through drinking a liquid. It turns out that the cholera bacteria doesn't actually kill off the cells in your guts, it just kneecaps them. It's still not pleasant, but, better kneecap than dead. While your guts are still unable to absorb water, you can sneakily get around this by giving your guts an electrolyte-packed liquid that's similar enough to your bodily fluids. Hell, even Gatorade has been used, rather controversially, to treat cholera victims in 1994. ORT is actually pretty straightforward, cheap, and easy to mass produce. Even developing countries were able to stockpile enough ORT, and it really saved a lot of lives, particularly children's lives. Cholera was a disease that prompted the first contact tracing and infectious disease prevention measures. It forced us to upgrade our knowledge of bacteria alongside the other giants of tuberculosis and anthrax. Cholera showed us the unpleasant consequences of not having good everyday hygiene. The World Health Organization, or WHO, was born out of the bloodbath of cholera. Europe was in full panic mode in 1851 as everybody started shitting themselves to death. These European nations frantically made an international health organization that evolved into the WHO we know today. Just like how the plague indirectly moved civilization forward in the Middle Ages, and how cholera directly advanced our medical infrastructure, maybe, just maybe, we can get something productive from our most recent incident. This has been David Bradford from Knowledge Raiders, and thank you for watching.